The passengers thought they were about to die. Coffee cups slammed into the ceiling. Oxygen masks dropped without warning. The cabin filled with screams. And in the cockpit, Captain Ethan Walker made a decision that would destroy his career, or save 214 lives. The headlines the next morning were brutal. Pilot makes dangerous emergency landing. Investigation underway after mid-air incident. Television experts questioned every move. Social media called him reckless. Some demanded he should never fly again. Nobody outside the investigation knew one thing. The aircraft hadn't suffered a mechanical failure. It hadn't been hit by lightning, and it wasn't bad weather. Captain Walker had seen something that nobody else on Earth could see 24 hours earlier. Flight 728 looked completely ordinary. Chicago to Seattle. 3 hours and 40 minutes. Clear skies, light winds, routine. Captain Ethan Walker had flown for 26 years, more than 19,000 flight hours, former Air Force pilot, perfect safety record. The kind of captain passengers hoped was sitting in the cockpit. Calm, experienced, never dramatic. His first officer, Ryan Brooks, had been flying with him for only 6 months. Young, confident, always eager to prove himself. As passengers boarded, Ethan noticed a little girl wearing oversized headphones waving excitedly at the cockpit. He smiled and invited her inside for a quick photo. "My dad says pilots are superheroes," she whispered. Ethan laughed. "No, good pilots are just people who never stop learning." Those words would come back to haunt him. The takeoff was flawless. 10 minutes after reaching cruising altitude, the cabin settled into silence. Flight attendants served drinks. Passengers watched movies. Children slept. Outside, nothing but endless white clouds. Then, a sound, not loud, not violent, just wrong, a vibration, barely noticeable, almost impossible to hear unless you'd spent half your life inside airplanes. Ryan looked up. "You hear that?" Ethan nodded. "Yeah." The instruments showed everything was normal. Engine temperatures, normal. Oil pressure, normal. Fuel flow, normal. No warning lights, no alarms. Nothing. Yet Ethan couldn't ignore the feeling. Years of experience had taught him that airplanes often whispered, long before they screamed. He asked maintenance control on the radio about similar reports. Nothing. He asked air traffic control if nearby aircraft had reported turbulence. Nothing. Everything looked perfect. Ryan leaned back. Probably just airflow. Maybe, but Ethan wasn't convinced. He quietly reduced power. The vibration changed, only slightly, but enough. His heart rate increased. He'd felt something similar once before, 20 years ago, during simulator training, a failure so rare that most airline pilots never experienced it in real life. The instructor had said something Ethan never forgot. "If you ever think this is happening, don't wait for proof. Proof comes too late." Ethan looked out at the left engine. Nothing unusual, no smoke, no fire, no visible damage. Every checklist still said the airplane was healthy. Ryan frowned. "So, what do we do?" Ethan stared ahead for several seconds, then made the decision that would end up on every news channel in America. Declare an emergency. Ryan froze. For what? "I don't know yet, but I know something isn't right." Silence filled the cockpit. Outside, the aircraft continued through perfectly clear blue skies. Inside, Captain Ethan Walker was betting his entire career on a feeling. The radio fell silent for a moment. Then air traffic control answered. "Flight 728, confirm the nature of your emergency." Captain Ethan Walker glanced at the engine instruments one more time. Every reading still looked perfect, but the vibration had changed again. Barely noticeable, yet different. "Flight 728 is declaring a precautionary emergency. We'd like immediate vectors to the nearest suitable airport." The controller paused. "Copy. Cleared direct Spokane. Emergency services will be standing by." Ryan couldn't hide his confusion. "Ethan, we still don't have any warnings." "I know. You realize this could cost you your job." Ethan nodded. "If I'm wrong, I'll explain it. If I'm right..." He never finished the sentence. The cabin crew informed passengers that the aircraft would be landing earlier than planned, out of an abundance of caution. Most people remained calm. Some looked out the windows. Others continued watching movies. Only a few noticed the unusual tension in the flight attendants' faces. Inside the cockpit, the vibration became slightly stronger. Still, no alarms. Ryan quietly whispered, "I've never seen anything like this." "Neither have I," Ethan replied, "but I've studied it." 20 minutes later, the airport came into view. Fire trucks lined the runway. Ambulances waited nearby. Passengers could see them through the windows. Now people began asking questions. Phones came out. Videos started recording. A child began crying. The landing itself was nearly perfect. The wheels touched the runway gently. Reverse thrust engaged. The aircraft slowed safely. Passengers applauded. Some even laughed with relief. They had no idea the real story was only beginning. As soon as the airplane stopped, maintenance crews surrounded the left engine. At first, they found nothing. One mechanic looked at Ethan. "What exactly were you feeling?" "A low-frequency vibration." The mechanic shrugged. "We're not seeing anything." Ryan looked embarrassed. Maybe they really had overreacted. Maybe every headline tomorrow would be right. Then one senior engineer asked for a borescope inspection, a tiny camera inserted deep inside the engine. The camera slowly moved between the turbine blades. Everything looked normal, until one blade appeared. It had an almost invisible crack, less than an inch long. The engineer leaned closer. His face turned pale. "Stop." The room went silent. Further inspection revealed the truth. The crack had spread deep inside the turbine disc. It couldn't be seen from outside. It triggered no cockpit warning, and according to investigators, it was only a matter of time before the component failed completely. Engineers later recreated the flight conditions. Their conclusion shocked everyone. Had Flight 728 continued another 30 to 40 minutes towards Seattle, the damaged turbine would likely have shattered at cruising speed. Fragments could have destroyed critical engine systems. The failure might have led to an uncontrollable fire, exactly the type of accident every pilot trains for, and hopes never to experience. 3 days later, the media changed its tone. The same television stations that questioned Ethan's decision now praised his judgment. Aviation experts explained that modern pilots are trained to trust both instruments and experience. Sometimes the aircraft tells you something long before the computers do. Sometimes the only warning is a feeling built over thousands of flight hours. The final investigation lasted months. Investigators downloaded the black box, every conversation, every control input, every sound. At one point, analysts noticed something remarkable. Several minutes before the emergency declaration, the cockpit voice recorder captured the faint vibration. It was barely audible. Most people couldn't even hear it, but Ethan had. Experts later confirmed that the unusual frequency matched the damaged turbine component almost perfectly. His ears had detected the problem before the airplane's own monitoring systems. The final report cleared Captain Walker of all wrongdoing. Instead, investigators recommended new inspection procedures for that specific engine model. Airlines around the world began checking similar aircraft. Several engines were found with early-stage cracks. They were replaced before returning to service. No passengers ever knew how close those flights had come to disaster. A month later, Ethan returned to work. As he walked through the terminal, someone called his name. It was the little girl from Flight 728. She ran toward him holding a drawing. It showed a large airplane flying safely above the clouds. At the front was a smiling pilot wearing a captain's hat. "You remember me?" she asked. Ethan smiled. "Of course I do. My dad said you saved everybody." Ethan shook his head. "No, I just listened." She looked confused. "To who?" He glanced toward the aircraft waiting at the gate. "To the airplane." Years later, aviation schools began discussing Flight 728 during safety seminars. Not because of a dramatic landing, not because of heroics, but because it reminded every young pilot of one simple lesson. Technology is incredible. Computers are powerful. Checklists are essential. But experience, earned over thousands of quiet flights, can sometimes notice what no machine can. And on one ordinary afternoon above the clouds, that experience made all the difference between a routine flight and a tragedy that never happened.